Good morning, my people. Well, I don't know how else to say this, but there's two things that are happening in the land of Trumpville. One um, is today is May 5th, 2025, and student loan collections are to resume today. And this article just came in about 2 hours ago. And that's not going to be looking good for a lot of people. And from what it's saying here, student loan collections resume for millions of Americans as of Monday, the 5th. Department of Education officially ended the 5-year COVID era. And I guess there was a protection that people had with the student loans. So that is ending. So you had to have tried to get into some kind of program quickly. Maybe like that should have happened like before Biden got out of office. Because the people who procrastinated and I guess didn't realize that we were coming to this, now we'll soon see the impact of all of this, because this is also going to change a lot of lives, because however people have been able to manage, this might change a lot of lives dramatically, and it won't be going in a good place. I will say that. And I could sit here and read this article, but I believe a lot of people, when it says student loan garnished, and I guess it has a video attached to it, and it's probably a lot of people expressing how they are dealing with this situation, or what has happened, or what they might have to do to prepare. So student loan collections resume for millions of Americans as of Monday. So this article is out of Newsweek. So it says the 5-year COVID era pause, it has ended this. So with nearly 10 million borrowers facing a current or implementing default, so these are people that are in default, a large portion of the country could soon experience abrupt financial pressures. So what is happening now is there's a lot of tariffs, and how it affects Americans already. We had people complaining about the prices of gas, the prices of eggs, the cost of living, and so on. So there's been a lot of things that have affected Americans already. And, a lot of people are not able to buy homes. I've heard people say that the materials coming from other places might be even more pricier, so that'll affect whether or not you're able to even build a home. Those people who are trying to build more living quarters and whatnot. But why are student loan payments resuming? So that's a question people might ask. So it is April 21st announcement. It said Department of Education said that they're resuming the collections that would protect taxpayers from shouldering the cost. So as if the students weren't taxpayers. So how does that work? You get it, what I'm saying? So I guess it's mainly, to me, I feel like this is just a move so that the wealthy doesn't have to shoulder the cost. That's really what they really should be saying. The ultra wealthy, that is. And so they don't want to give up their money to help the homeless. They don't want to give up their money to help any of these people that need help. That's why all these programs have been, scaled down. And I feel that's where a lot of this is coming from. And now, unfortunately, we got students that are going to be affected greatly by this. So it says, so they feel that protecting taxpayers from shouldering the cost of the federal student loans that borrowers are willingly undertook to finance their post-secondary education. So people who went and they might have went to get a master's degree or PhD. Usually when you go past a bachelor's degree, a lot of times people get into these programs where they present to you a loan. And so people go into those programs with the intention of getting the education and coming out in hopes that they'll be able to make more money, that they can cover those loans. They'll be able to, live better, have a better occupation, a career, and be able to pay those loans. But those loans end up incurring interest over time. And what happens is people begin to live their lives. They might end up having to pay the car notes, the mortgage note. They might have to help family members. Some medical issue might come into play with maybe family members or the student themselves. And then they realize that paying the student loan plus all of the things that go on in their lives outside of college tend to be more expensive. And so then you gotta budget on what can you afford in terms of your living and eating. And then now at the end, okay, how can we pay this student loan bill? And so a lot of times people get in over their head, and it may not be on purpose. It could be things that start happening in people's lives. So having those college degrees too, sometimes people don't get hired the jobs or the occupations, that is careers, that they had anticipated after maybe going 4+ years to higher education institutions. And so McMahon, she spoke on some of these things, but I'm just going to say this here. I feel like a lot of this too is people who are really wealthy. They could try to make a fund to try to help, give grants to try to help people out. But when you're greedy, or when you don't want to really feel like you should be responsible, because these people, like they said, willingly undertook finance, for their post-secondary. So they might come at you and be like, well, when you get an expensive car, should we have to shoulder the cost because you couldn't pay for it? So they might use that as an argument. But that's a car, that's different, and then people have to learn from their mistakes. But this right here, so many people felt like, because we are in America here, a lot of people were taught that the higher the education you get, the better career you might be able to achieve. And the knowledge is power, and so it's all pumped into people's heads. It's the American way. If you're not an actor or actress, you're not a person that just somehow strikes it rich. The other avenue outside of if you can inherit money is to be about the money by getting a good career through education. So all of us are told this. So should we be now punished because we were trying to get ahead in life? That also is an argument, So American taxpayers will no longer be forced. This is coming from the Trump administration, so this is not my ideology, this is theirs, saying that they're not going to be forced to serve as collateral for irresponsible, listen to how it sounds, irresponsible student loan policies. So Secretary of Education Linda McMahon said this. So I just want you to know that it wasn't coming from my mouth. The Biden administration, they claim, misled allegedly borrowers. The executive branch does not have the constitutional authority to wipe debt away, nor do the loan balances simply disappear. And so there's a lot of people who they were able to have their loans cleared under the Biden administration. Now, depending on how big of a loan those were, is, the big question is now those people who went and, maybe they got 20, 30,000, 50,000, or maybe even more in debt. You should be looking at your email and checking, to see if you're getting a letter alerting you that you may have these things coming back at you very soon. Anyway, it says while the federal student loan typically default after 270 days, none has been subject to collection since March 2020. So the Trump era pause was extended several times by the Biden administration, which also canceled loans for over 5 million borrowers worth nearly $190 billion. The Department of Education is now urging those that are in default to begin making monthly payments or enroll in a suitable payment plan. So, in addition to voluntary repayment plans, the resumption of collections will include involuntary measures such as wage garnishments, tax refund seizures, and reductions in Social Security benefits as well. They're going to affect those people who are in that area. So how much student loan debt is there? So the Department of Education says that 42.7 million borrowers currently owe 1.6 trillion in student debt. So some 5 million of those borrowers have not made any monthly payment over a year and are in default. And so that's where people stand on that. So in addition, 4 million borrowers are in late stage delinquency and about to default on late payments, and the department says means which the department says means almost 10 million are in that situation. They're now at risk of getting wages garnished or tax refunds withheld from them. So if you're looking for tax refund next year, you might not get it, is what they're saying. So the Treasury Offset Program will target IRS tax refunds, Social Security benefit payments as well as railroad and Office of Personnel Management retirement benefits as well. So anybody that is anywhere familiar with those programs, you probably should start checking your email and all of your mailings that come in the U.S. postal box for any letters regarding all of this. So the student loan borrower assistance states that the government will only be permitted to seize a tax refund that has not yet been sent to the taxpayer, meaning that those who've already received refunds will not be at risk of a seizure until the year 2026. So that's the coming year. So this year you're good, but next year may not be the case, is what they're saying. And so that's pretty much that article right there. It goes on though to say that which repayment plan will you be placed on. So it goes into that. And to exit default, borrowers have two main options. One is the rehabilitation, which involves making 9 consecutive monthly payments set by a loan servicer, which can erase a default from borrowers' records if they make these series of required payments within a set period of time. A faster option is a loan consolidation, which lets borrowers merge multiple defaulted loans into a direct consolidation loan. So this enables them to promptly join an income-driven repayment plan and start making monthly payments. So all borrowers in default should have received communication from the Office of Student Financial Aid at some point over the past 2 weeks. These urge them to contact the default resolution group. So some people already know they're in this situation. They've probably already received email or some mailings regarding this, because this is the reason why. So you have to arrange monthly payments and join an income-driven repayment plan or sign up for a loan rehabilitation. So borrowers can visit studentaid.gov to check their status and see what repayment plans are available. And so that's pretty much how that goes right there. And so I believe that's that article. Okay. So this is Linda McMahon. She is the one that is, I believe, the dealing with the student loan issues, and she's the chairperson of of this whole situation here. Now, she is someone who is working under the Trump administration, and so since today is May 5th, people need to be preparing for this, or if they've not already, they probably are aware and they've received some type of mailing regarding this matter. Now, the other thing that I learned today is that there is 100% tariff on the movie industry. And from what I heard in the news, that Trump wants to place 100% tariff to those groups, those crews that are in the movie industry that film movies overseas. And so think of all of your favorite movies that you've watched that might have been produced in a foreign country. And so he's placing 100% tariffs on them. And if you think I'm not telling the truth, I'm going to show you the ugly truth of this right here. So this pretty much tells you, the Hollywood Reporter says Trump says he's instituting 100% tariff on films produced outside of the U.S. because he feels the movie industry in America is dying. So the president, he posted that Hollywood and other areas are being devastated due to the concerted effort of other nations, which constitute a national security threat. So that's the way he coined it. Now, I don't know if you guys remember during the pandemic when everything was shuttered, Hollywood really was impacted greatly from a lot of that. A lot of movies couldn't be made in some places just because of that. And it really took a hit financially. And now we're looking at this. And so this will definitely change the face of the movie industry altogether. So in a move that could shake up the entertainment industry, President Trump says he's directed his administration to put 100% tariff on any movie coming into the U.S. that were not produced in the country. So he posted on his Truth Social platform on Sunday that he's authorized the Department of Commerce and the U.S. Trade Representative to institute that tariff. So the movie industry in America, he says, is dying very fast. Death is what he allegedly claims. So he wrote this. So the other countries are offering all sorts of incentives to draw our filmmakers and studios away from the U.S. This is what is coming out of the mouth of Trump. So Hollywood and many other areas within the U.S. are being devastated. So this is a concerted effort by the nations, and therefore the national security threat. He feels that this is it's a national security threat. So it is also, I believe, if I'm not I thought I also heard him say that he felt like it was also a way to, create propaganda as well. So I don't know if that is true at all. I don't feel that is true. In my book, I don't feel that it is true, because there's been many movies that have been made overseas and over in other places that turn out to be really great movies. And two, I believe this is an effort. This is coming from my opinion that this is also a way to punish other nations. And if you seen, he wanted to make the Gulf of Mexico the Gulf of America, Greenland red, white, and blue land. He also wanted to call Canada the 51st state. And so I feel like this also is colonialism in our time, what we're seeing, land grabbing, and also being real restrictive of other countries with the tariffs and whatnot. And he's like overreaching the powers that he has. So that's my opinion. And I feel too, I'm gonna add this in here, is that I feel like a lot of people who voted, I saw videos this past weekend where, I've listened to a couple of other YouTube people, like Roland Martin, and I've listened to this man, I can't think of his name, but his videos, it begins with the Defiant Lawyers. The only reason why I've looked at his videos is because he has some legal background, and he does know how to break down some of the legal terms of what is going on when they are dealing with political issues in the administration, when they have to do with laws that he and in executive orders that Trump is creating, and how it impacts the black communities at large, and then other communities that are of color, and people who are low income, or people who are not really voices that we're hearing right now, except through protests and demonstrations that I've been seeing all over, and all over America. There's been protests. They've been growing. They've been getting a lot bigger, and they've been getting some more recognition. Right now, the protests, they're not as violent. But I seen a few that were. But I feel like as these things keep happening, where we're seeing all of these changes being made, and if it impacts people in America very negatively, financially, those protests may begin to get more aggressive and violent. And that's what I'm seeing coming down the road. Also, what I also discovered here, he's saying in the other countries are offering all sorts of incentives to draw our filmmakers and studios away from the U.S. You hear how that sounds? So it's something going on a lot bigger than what we know, folks. And some of us know, this is probably not going to go in a good direction. So it says, therefore, I am authorizing the Department of Commerce and the U.S. Trade Representative to immediately begin the process of instituting a 100% tariff on any of them and all movies coming into our country that are produced in foreign lands. We want movies made in America again. So this is coming from Trump's administration and Trump himself. So for years, Hollywood productions have flocked to countries such as the United Kingdom, Australia, Ireland, Spain for their tax incentives. And so, talking with C-SPAN on Sunday, Trump was asked about the tariffs, and he briefly expounded upon his post and put some of the blame on California Governor. Of course, he blames Gavin Newsom in addition to other countries. So there's been this bumping of head with Gavin Newsom and Trump for many years, I believe. I don't think this is new. So what we've done is other nations have been stealing the movies, the movie making capabilities from the United States. This is coming from Trump, not from me. He said, adding, so I have done some very strong research, this is Trump, over the past week, and we're making very few movies now. So Hollywood's being destroyed. So now you have a grossly incompetent governor, and that allowed that to happen. So I'm not just blaming other nations, but other nations have stolen our movie industry. This is coming from Trump. So if they're not willing to make movies in the U.S., only that governments are actually giving big money. And it says in the U.S., then we should have a tariff on those movies that come in, and not only that, governments that are actually giving big money. So they're supporting them financially. That sort of a threat to our country in a sense, he says. So asked for a comment of a spokesperson in the Newsom's office, said looks like it's a distraction day again in the Washington D.C., I guess, White House. Meanwhile, the top entertainment executives say that this would be devastating for the TV industry and not just movies as well. So Vancouver is over, said one source. And so I don't know if this is the whole article. Let's go down a little further. The Motion Picture Association has yet to comment on this issue, but we'll hear comments for sure about this. Probably this will also be another issue that'll be hotly debated and protested. So there are a number of expensive tent poles due out in the coming months that filmed overseas that would they be grandfathered in via a grace period or hit with the tariff? That's the question. And what would the tariff even look like? So this was all unclear, as they say. Ultra pricey Mission Impossible, that movie, The Final Reckoning, coming out May the 23rd, was shot all over the world, which is one of the key selling points of the globe-trotting franchise, which films overseas for exotic locales, not the tax credits. So Lionsgate John Wick spinoff, Ballerina, June 6th, filmed in Czech Republic. Disney's 20th Century Avatar, Fire and Ash, December the 19th. That was made in New Zealand, which has become a production hub over the past 20 years after the Lord of the Rings filmmaker Peter Jackson put it on the map. Disney's sister company, Marvel Studios, could also be hit with tariffs. It recently began filming Avengers Doomsday May 1st, 2026 in London, and plans to film Sony co-production Spider-Man Brand New Day July 31st, 2026, and there this year as well. So the UK offers generous tax incentives that help lure production away from Atlanta, where Avengers Infinity War and the Avengers Endgame film. Disney-owned Lucasfilm is also expected to shoot the Ryan Gosling Star Wars Starfighter May 28, 2027 in the United Kingdom this year. So Warner Brothers Discovery rivals comic books brand DC Studios has been beefing up its London presence, filming Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow June 26, 2026 in London. So these movies might be impacted by the tariffs in some way. So there's a cottage industry of low budget VOD movies that shoot in Eastern Europe, countries such as Romania and Bulgaria, for low labor costs and tax incentives. Think anything low budget starring an aging action star. Trump, of course, last month announced a plan to place the 10% tariffs on goods from every country that trades with the U.S., as well as S&P 500 and the Dow Jones Industrial Average both dropped amid fears of recession. So a week later, he said he was putting a 90-day pause on most of those tariffs, except those against China. The stock market has since rebounded. That's what they claim, allegedly. So this article right here, I'm going to stop. I believe that's the end of it. So I just went over some of the most important, iconic movies that people like to go see could possibly be affected greatly by these tariffs, 100% on the film industry. And so just think of what happened when they had to close places down during the pandemic behind all of what was going on, and how the movie industry suffered from that. And now we are looking at this. Now, what are we going to see coming up? So that is to be, seen how that'll impact the movie sector, the movie industry. So we have what I said, backtracking, we had the student loan issue, and then we have this 100% tariff on films produced outside the U.S. Wow, he's left no stone unturned, I can say that. But I feel like just saying this, what I've noticed is I've seen some of the videos from people who are concerned about a lot of these issues, rightfully so. But I will say this, I'm going to add this in there. These are my opinions, okay? So don't shoot the messenger. Everybody's entitled to opinions. I know a lot of people like to hang on to religion. I'm not I'm gonna say this again, I'm not a religious guru, and I'm not heavy into religion. And I'll let me be honest and break it down. I'm not trying to put people who are religious down, but if you look at all of the years and the things that have occurred and where we're at right now, I don't think it's really helped us. And I'm gonna say this, it's because the people that are orchestrating it. And, I don't know if you saw that issue with Marvin Sapp when he told people to close the doors in the church that he preaches out of. And he was saying nobody can leave unless they donate $20 or more in the collection plate. And then I heard Roland Martin, he kind of was supporting it. And some other people, and then other people were not supportive of it. If you look at what's going on in the world now, a lot of people are really, their back is against the wall. There's high food prices, high gas prices, high rent prices. I'm hearing even the housing market might be soon to be, if not already, affected by what's going on right now in the economy. And so you're trying to pressure people to put money in the pot that might be money they need to use to go to the grocery store to buy food, or to maybe, get laundry quarters, or maybe they need to use it to put gas in their car so they can get to work and make a little more money just to survive throughout the week or the month. So you got to look at people's circumstance. Everybody's not ultra wealthy. Everybody doesn't have a Fortune 500 company. Everybody doesn't have that money at their disposal to just be like, let me just willy-nilly put this money here. So they might have to, now people are tightening up their wallets on where they're spending it, and they're spending it for the things that they need, not necessarily all the things they just want, so you got to consider that. I understand, the building has the lights and they have to pay for all of their equipment and whatnot, but also those church people and those organizations need to realize, if you're there for the people, you're not there for just that building. You might want to consider downsizing as well. Just like people got a downside, then those organizations, if they're really about the people, then they might need to downsize themselves, because they're filling their pockets as well. And I feel like they're very deceiving. They weaponized religion over the years. They use it to dominate and separate people of different classes and groups. I believe it also has started the gender war. It kind of created that, because you want to make women, you want to make women where they can't control the choices of their bodies. And so I think all of these things, the separatism and all this stuff, a lot of this started from these religions, because people classify people and put people in boxes. And if you don't do what this X organization says to do, then you're out, or you're cast out, or you're an undesirable. And so that's my opinion. I feel like it hasn't really helped us, because if you look and you do the research on these religions in other countries, people literally get their head cut off simply because they don't follow a particular religion. So religion is not all that. And one guy, I watched him, he did the Defiant Lawyers. He was talking about, well, Christianity is not a white thing. Well, I'll tell you this, it's not being led like a black thing either. Only those churches who do that. And it's whitewashed, and it has been used to demonize black people in the past, and also categorize black people. And most of those Bibles always depicted the characters as being white. So it has been manipulated 1,000 times over. And so who can you trust anymore? And then when you look at a whole host of incidences of these pastors, how they sleeping with people in the church, or they're sleeping with men, and then they're doing all this. And I'm not trying to demonize any communities, but the very things they claim they're preaching against, they're actually a partaking in it of themselves. And then they're demonizing other people. Now, no offense to people who, if you're in alternative relationships and you chose that relationship and you're with that one partner and you're responsible, okay, you're consenting adults. But people who are pretending to be something they're not, and then they're bashing others, that doesn't make it right either. So that's what I have a huge problem with, these religious organizations. So I don't follow none of them, because a lot of times it's all talk, and they don't really live the life that they try to make people believe they're living. And then you got the race issues. We have all these issues with racism in this country and outside of the country of the U.S. And so if religion was all that, why are we fighting even harder for our rights to be heard? So that's my issue with it. Y'all can follow that if you want to. But that's where I stand on that. I feel like spirituality, people are they make the church, not these buildings, not these fancy clothes and fancy cars that these preachers and so-called motivational Joel Osteen motivational speakers are doing, making money off of people's books. And I feel like we're heavily driven here in the U.S. with capitalism, and that's also what has destroyed a lot of us. Not everybody are going to be winners. They're not going to be ultra rich. They're not going to be having a brand. That's why, I know I'm going along with this, but these are my opinions. You got these rappers, and people are surprised that they follow the Trump administration. Well, they're about the money too. You're paying for them to be who they are. And now they're older, so they can't do what they used to do in their 20s and 30s. So now they got to become a brand to continue being relevant. And we know who did that, Snoop Dogg. Everybody was shocked that he performed for the Trump administration for that little party. But at the end of the day, he's thinking, well, I'm a brand and I'm trying to make my money and my coins too. And so a lot of these people that you thought were in your corner, or they had, they come from up out of these neighborhoods, the hood, as they say. But they couldn't wait to get out and make money and move away and distance themselves. And once they got that money in their pocket, you know how some people, they distance themselves for real. They only want you to fill their pockets. They're not your friends. And they're not trying to help. Some people will come back and they try to give to schools. They'll try to donate. They try to help the community in some type of way, doing charity work. And then you got others, they don't want to help. All they want to do is for you to help build money in their bank accounts. And that's it. And that's the way it's looking. And all these black people, they say that they voted for Trump. A lot of them, I feel like this is what I feel. These YouTube guys saying they don't understand why these black people voted. Not all black people voted for Trump, but the ones, I feel like the ones of the people that you hear all these crazy reasons. Okay, so we're not living in a time of when people were picking cotton and they didn't have nowhere to go, and they were living in, in poverty, and they had to be creative and rely on one another to build some type of wealth of some sort, or to survive. We are the children of people who are benefiting from the successes of what civil rights left us. So a lot of those people, they don't know what segregation is. They don't know what it feels like that you can't shop in this store, you can't go and eat in this restaurant, you can't go to this gas station, you can't live in this neighborhood. They have benefited off of being free to live in neighborhoods, or to go shop in that go shop in that store, and go eat in that restaurant. Had we been those people, and I hate to say it, some people don't learn until it's in their situation in their life. They're dealing with that hatred, or that vitriol hatred, or if we're dealing with something even worse like the segregation, where it catapults us more killings of black people. People have to go through something horrible to realize, oh, we can't vote for people like this, because they're not our friends. They're not in our best interest. And so when people see that these people are not going to be supportive of you, they never were, they lie, they're deceiving, they're politicians. And I know some people are saying, oh, we don't trust the Democrats neither, they just sit back and let all this happen. Well, guess what? This guy that they voted for, he's not making it any better either. This Make America Great Again is really make wealthy white people great. And even the poor white people, you're not going to do well either. The only thing you got to benefit is a skin color. And that's not going to get you far if you can't eat and you can't sleep anywhere. And I'm just being real. But this is where we're going on all of this. This is what it looks like to me. That there are no real winners except the ones who are the ultra wealthy in all of this. And it looks like it's like a little club, and if you ain't in this, you ain't gonna win.